The appellate court delivered a decisive blow today, overturning Alex Murdaugh's double murder conviction and ordering a new trial. This unanimous decision wipes out the life sentence Murdaugh received for the brutal murders of his wife Maggie and son Paul, resetting the scoreboard in a legal contest that has gripped the nation for years. The ruling, handed down after months of intense deliberation, represents a monumental shift in a case that many believed was definitively closed. Murdaugh, a once prominent South Carolina attorney from a powerful legal family, was found guilty in March 2023, following a 6-week trial that drew intense national and international media attention. The prosecution had presented a mountain of circumstantial evidence, including cell phone data placing Murdaugh at the crime scene and his own shifting alibis. The guilty verdict, delivered after less than 3 hours of jury deliberation, seemed to seal his fate, sending him to prison for life without parole. However, today's appellate court action has effectively called a timeout on that finality. The 3-judge panel meticulously reviewed the defense's arguments, focusing on alleged misconduct during the original proceedings. This isn't merely a procedural adjustment. It's a complete nullification of the previous guilty verdict, forcing prosecutors back to square one in their pursuit of justice for Maggie and Paul. The immediate consequence is a return to the starting line for the murder charges, with the state now facing the daunting task of preparing for a second full trial. This legal game is far from over, with the next phase now officially underway, promising another intense period of scrutiny and legal maneuvering for all parties involved. The court's decision underscores the rigorous standards of due process, even in cases of such high public interest and emotional weight, ensuring that every aspect of the trial's integrity is upheld, regardless of the defendant's notoriety or the severity of the charges. This legal upset has sent shockwaves through the judicial system, raising questions about trial conduct and the path forward for one of the country's most infamous cases. Few expected this outcome after Murdaugh's initial conviction, which followed a 6-week trial and extensive media coverage that painted a grim picture of the defendant. The prosecution had presented a compelling narrative, detailing Murdaugh's financial crimes and his alleged motive to distract from them by committing the murders. The guilty verdict, delivered swiftly by the jury, seemed to close the book on the high-profile case, with many legal experts and observers believing the evidence, though circumstantial, was overwhelming. The initial trial featured dramatic testimony, including Murdaugh himself taking the stand, and a relentless focus on the Murdaugh family's complex history and legal entanglements. The public perception largely solidified around the conviction, making today's reversal a significant upset in the legal arena. This ruling reopens that book, challenging the finality many had assumed and highlighting the intricate and often unpredictable nature of the appellate process. The defense's appeal was a long shot in the eyes of many, given the weight of the original verdict and the public's strong reaction to the case. However, the appellate court's focus shifted from the evidence presented at trial to the conduct surrounding the jury itself, a critical aspect of ensuring a fair and impartial process. This pivot in legal strategy and judicial review ultimately created the opening for Murdaugh's defense to challenge the seemingly insurmountable conviction, proving that even in high-stakes legal battles, the game is never truly over until the final appeal is heard and decided. The initial conviction was a dominant performance by the prosecution, but the defense found a critical flaw in the execution. The turning point in this legal contest centered squarely on allegations of jury tampering by Colleton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill. The appellate court found that Hill's conduct, including pressuring jurors, misrepresenting information, and engaging in unauthorized communications, compromised Murdaugh's fundamental right to a fair trial. Specifically, the court cited testimony from jurors who described Hill's attempts to influence their deliberations, allegedly telling them not to be swayed by Murdaugh's testimony and even discussing his perceived guilt. These actions, detailed in a post-conviction evidentiary hearing, became the critical foul that led to the reversal. The defense team meticulously presented evidence suggesting Hill had a financial motive to see Murdaugh convicted, including plans for a book about the trial. This alleged interference, occurring outside the formal courtroom proceedings, created an environment where the jury's impartiality could not be guaranteed. The court's decision emphasized that the integrity of the jury system is paramount, and any external influence, regardless of intent, can undermine the entire judicial process. The findings indicated that Hill's actions were not merely procedural missteps but constituted an attempt to sway the outcome, thereby tainting the verdict. This specific sequence of events, focusing on the clerk's behavior rather than the evidence of the murders themselves, proved to be the decisive swing in Murdaugh's favor. It highlighted a vulnerability in the trial's administration that the defense expertly exploited, leading to the dramatic reversal. The court's ruling sends a clear message about the strict standards required to maintain the sanctity of jury deliberations, ensuring that external pressures do not compromise justice. The appellate court, acting as the ultimate arbiter of justice in this round, highlighted the actions of Becky Hill as the defining factor in this result. While the court did not find that Hill's misconduct directly caused the guilty verdict, it ruled that her interference could have influenced the jury, thus denying Murdaugh a fair and impartial trial. This distinction is crucial. The reversal is not based on Murdaugh's innocence or guilt regarding the murders, but on the procedural integrity of his conviction. The defense team, led by attorneys Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin, successfully argued that Hill's alleged actions created an unfair playing field, violating the fundamental principles of due process. Their strategic focus on the clerk's conduct, rather than relitigating the murder evidence, proved to be a masterstroke. Hill's testimony during the evidentiary hearing, where she denied some allegations but admitted to others, provided the appellate court with sufficient grounds to question the fairness of the original trial. Her alleged attempts to gain favor with jurors and her discussions about the case outside of court were deemed unacceptable and prejudicial. This strategic win by the defense now forces the state to prepare for a rematch, with the original verdict effectively wiped from the record. The appellate judges, through their unanimous decision, underscored the importance of an untainted jury process, effectively penalizing the state for the alleged actions of one of its court officers. This outcome serves as a powerful reminder that even in the most high-profile cases, procedural fairness can override the initial findings, shifting the entire trajectory of the legal battle. What comes next is a new trial, a complete reset of the legal proceedings for the double murder charges. This ruling does not affect Murdaugh's other convictions for numerous financial crimes, including money laundering, insurance fraud, and theft, for which he is currently serving a separate sentence. However, it fundamentally alters the landscape of the murder charges, forcing the prosecution to rebuild its case from the ground up. The state now faces the daunting challenge of representing evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, and selecting a new jury, all under intense public scrutiny and with the added complexity of the previous trial's controversies. Murdaugh's legal team, having secured this significant victory, will undoubtedly prepare for another high-stakes contest, armed with the knowledge gained from the first trial and the appellate process. The timeline for a new trial remains uncertain, but it is expected to be a lengthy and resource-intensive process for both sides. This decision also has broader implications for the South Carolina judicial system, potentially leading to increased scrutiny of court officials' conduct and jury management protocols. For the Murdaugh family, particularly Buster Murdaugh, this ruling means the legal battle surrounding his father's alleged role in the deaths of his mother and brother will continue to unfold. The standings in this legal saga have been dramatically reshuffled, and the next phase promises to be as compelling and unpredictable as the last, with the ultimate outcome still hanging in the balance.